Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unrated. We are live, and if you're listening to the podcast on iTunes or Google Play, then we're not live. We recorded this 5 days ago. We've been fighting. Devin knows we've been fighting for the top spot on the PSVG charts.
Yeah, buddy.
I think we just debunked Nintendo Shack last week. We just set the Shack on fire.
Deuces Shack.
We walk up to it. We kicked the front door open. We told Donnie, you better get out. We told Carol, you better get out because we're about to light this up. And then we we didn't even torch it. We just straight up launched bazooka the crap out of it. And we just walked away. So this is Unrated, the internet's fiercest and strongest podcast with a power level of over 9,000. If you're listening to the podcast version, then you already listened to that because Devin put in some really cool what do we call that thing?
Bumpers
at the beginning of the show. Thank you. Those are, especially the one last week was really cool. It was Mr. Meese. We were talking about how we wish we had a really cool, fancy, new bumper, and I think Tyler actually kind of fixed that for us. I am your host, Q.
Clutch.
What was that?
Said Tyler came through in the clutch.
Oh, absolutely, man. He's super clutch. I love that guy. He needs to get more airtime. We need to get him on here, man. Anyway, Tyler, if you're listening, just give me a heads up, man. We'll get you on here. I'm your host, Q, broadcasting from the nation's capital city in Washington, D.C., or, somewhere relatively close, give or take a few miles. And my co-host all the way from California. What's up, Devin? How's it going, man?
I am chilling. Once again, it is cold, and I don't appreciate it.
I feel like that's like the subtitle to every Unrated, how cold it is where we are. So
yeah,
it's like really bad small talk. It's like, how do we
get
started on this?
I need some warmth. Okay, I'm tired of this cold stuff. I don't want to walk outside and there's frost on my windshield and my grass is frozen.
Wait, that happens? That's how it is. Oh man,
yeah. I'm not used to that.
Well, we had our first snow of the, I guess this is the winter over here. It started it was supposed to start around midnight of Saturday morning or Friday night. But at least where I'm at, it didn't start till actually much later in the day. So it's kind of was just I don't know. People just, I don't know. It was just kind of weird. People didn't go out of their houses till noon, and then they realized there was nothing to worry about because it barely snowed at all. And finally, if you are watching, then you probably already noticed we have a third person to this show. We're getting bigger, Devin. We're growing. Yeah. We're growing. Move over, IGN. We're taking over. I'm just kidding. They're good guys over there for the most part. Good people at IGN. We got Matt all the way from Matt. Where are you from, man?
Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. So
Raleigh, Durham,
pretty close to you.
North Carolina, Bull City.
I see the shirt you're wearing, so
That's right.
I don't like State though. I hate them, but
oh man, all right. This is the first and only time Matthew will be on the show.
I'm a Tar Heel fan, so
there we go. All
right. Give a little bit of grief all the time.
Well, we beat you guys in football, but it's basketball season now. We're wrapping up football season, so that's always tends to be another story. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt or Matthew. I'll probably go back and forth the entire show between the two. Obviously you're a gamer, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be allowed. The gamers only at Unrated.
Yeah.
What would you describe yourself as a gamer? And if yes, what is that standard for you? Because that's something that I like to talk to people about. What is a gamer to you? For me, it's something that is very much self-applied, right? You are a gamer if you think of yourself as one. If you don't, then it doesn't apply to you, But I think that's the point that you can actually apply to yourself. That's when it actually matters. So what does that mean to you, Matthew?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on this podcast. First, want to say that. But definitely consider myself a gamer. I've been playing video games, a variety of types, for over a decade. I don't know, actually, maybe close to 2 decades now, honestly. And yeah, I think it is self-applied for sure. I think that you're exactly right, that kind of self-identity to say, I'm a gamer, I want to play video games, that's really important to me. That is something that you kind of have to have. And if you don't have that, even if you enjoy playing video games, I don't think you have the same type of commitment to them or desire to, experience them. I definitely game heavily in investment games, social games, MMOs, things like that. I love that style of game, and I play a lot of that style of game.
Now, if you had to identify a come to Jesus moment with games, where at what point would you say? I'm sure that that's not the right way to use that phrase, but I just used it. So, a come to Phil Spencer moment as the savior of Xbox. At what point would you say you went from being a regular guy who plays video games to someone who actively, considers himself part of the gaming, of the wider, and I would say to some extent very loyal gaming community that we're part of?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it was actually Halo 2. Playing Halo 2 multiplayer or local area network multiplayer a lot. We used to spend hours and hours and hours playing Halo 2 in the dorm room, at my house, at friends' houses, other things like that, whenever I was in high school and college. And I think at that point, really identified as a gamer. Like I love playing Halo 2. And had a group of multiple friend groups that played a lot. So I would say that was it. And it is ironic you said Phil Spencer because it was an Xbox game. So
there you go. Actually, Devin, just to fill you in, I would go over to Matthew's house when I was in high school on Friday nights, and we would, because he had his parents had like a very nice setup. They had like multiple, big TVs and really nice couches too. I mean, you could just pass out. Some people did pass out.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, we had so many
like around 2 a.m. People some people just like, getting assassinations and shotgun kills in Halo doesn't keep you awake after some point. And I would get in trouble because I was a very vivid Halo gamer. So I would scream really loudly, yell when I died or when I got a kill, and it hasn't changed at all. I mean, it's still with Halo, and even with Rainbow Six Siege. Like, if I go on a triple kill, especially in Rainbow Six, because getting a kill period in Rainbow Six Siege is hard. Getting 2 kills or 3 kills is like amazing per match. I'm just like, I would outburst, and I think Matt's parents had enough of me as a kid. In the middle of the night, bursting out after I don't know. I don't know.
What was funny was that when Q first started, he was probably the worst player in the group. And over time, he gradually moved up and up and up and got better. And so it was really funny watching that progression.
Yeah, absolutely. Hilarious. And now I'm the greatest there ever was.
I have a friend that is the exact same way. We started out playing Modern Warfare 3, and he literally just said, I can't shoot guns. I'm going to just stab people. So he literally would only get knife kills, and then he eventually just kept playing, and he would just mop the floor with everybody. It was crazy.
We had a friend who similarly, his name was Mark. He was not really good at much except like hiding in a corner with like a shotgun or a sword. Or maybe just straight up like an SMG. He would just hide forever, and then come out of nowhere, assassinate, hit in you the back, boom, assassination, and that's it. That was his thing. He would just like that was his go-to move.
It was like one kill and 1 death every game. That was it.
I mean that was his trademark move, his MO. Cool. So let's go. Let's move into our check-in. Let's start with you, Devin. What have you been up to, man? What have you been gaming? What's been keeping you busy lately?
All right, so as we all know, I went to PSX this last weekend, so that kept me very busy. I am still recovering. I am tired. That was a long weekend, but it was fun and worth it. Other than that, I've been still playing.
Is PSX a conference? Is this a place for people that don't play video games or
no, man?
This
is the place for people who play video games on PlayStation.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, PlayStation Experience. It's awesome. It's every year. I think this is the 4th year running. This is the 2nd year in Anaheim. They always do it the first weekend in December. And it's just like a great time to go experience PlayStation. You get to see pretty much all of their exclusives that are coming. You might get lucky and see some of the new things that they haven't announced yet or that they've just announced. There's tons of swag giveaways. They have the PlayStation Store, so you can actually buy like swag and stuff like that. But it's just a really good time. I went with my raid team actually from Destiny. So we all went down there. We had a little LAN party and tried to raid and failed because we were all drunk and tired.
Wait, you raided at PSX or when you got back? Okay,
at PSX. We got a suite. We took a bunch of monitors, took all our PlayStations, and sucked up all the bandwidth in the hotel and attempted to raid very, very late Friday night. And we were all tired and a little drunk, and it did not go well because it was also the new raid, the raid layer. So we had no idea what we were doing, and it was an epic fail, but it was great.
But y'all are all PlayStation players, so I mean, the difference between sober and drunk, you know, for FPS ability is very, you know, minimal. You know, I mean,
the problem is that in the raid, the point that we were at, there was no shooting involved. Like it was literally like the puzzle pieces, so it was jumping on platforms.
Perfect for PlayStation players. No shooting.
Here you go.
Press A to jump. Press X to or square.
All I'm saying is my team cleared the raid probably faster and before your team did.
Look, man, it's not my fault. I'm hurting cats over here. We're getting all these Nintendo transplants over here, man.
Oh, that's the worst.
They don't even know what first person mode is.
Not at all.
they see first person mode and they're like, "Oh, is the game broken? Did it freeze? Where's my cartoon third person character? Where's my 2D platformer?" You know, like,
how do I throw my hat on this? Where's the Master Sword? I don't understand what's going on here.
Jeez.
So if I can ask, could you guys met in person before, or was that your first like in-person hangout?
There's two of the guys that we had that I'd only met that was the first time I met in person, but everybody else we had already met in person. A couple of us went to PSX last year, and that was our first time meeting in person. And then two of the guys that were supposed to come last year ended up actually making it this year, so that was the first time we had met them. But everybody within the group had already known somebody, so there were only a couple of us who hadn't actually met in person. But it was like riding a bike. It was seeing each other in person didn't make it any different. It was just like, oh yeah, what's up? It's good. Let's go. So
nice.
Cool.
I definitely had experiences where like I met people. One of my Xbox compatriots, his name is the Sushi Poop. That's his gamer tag. When we finally met in person, I was unimpressed by his physical appearance. You know, he's just this ginger, and I was like, oh man, very disappointed. He's a ginger. I'm just kidding. Now. But then very shortly after that, we just kind of picked it up like we were just on another party chat, and it was good. Yeah, it was good times. Awesome. That's always a good feeling when you meet people and you're like, oh man, they're just like they're online. They're great people.
Exactly.
If you had to highlight one thing that made PSX worth it, I mean, outside of getting together with people and just hanging out in person, like from the event itself, what will be one main highlight from the whole thing?
Honestly, just PSVR. That was probably the one thing that I hadn't really put a whole lot of time into, and actually got to sit down and play some PSVR stuff. And I'm like, yeah, this is actually really good. So I am more excited about PSVR and really want to pick one up. So
which PSVR did you play? Which one did you play?
I played one game called Bravo Team, which is a newer game that was just announced. It's kind of like Time Crisis, actually. It's two people, and the little mission they gave us were basically pinned down on a bridge, and we have to make it, to the end of the bridge. And you're basically calling out stuff for each other. You're running a cover or whatnot. So it didn't give you that like motion sickness because it is like cover based. So you basically just move the cover. And when they move the cover, it pans out into a third person view. So you see your character. But the cool thing was it had the little sharpshooter attachment or whatnot. So like you're literally picking up the gun, and you have to like bring it up high enough to actually be able to aim down the sights. And like they need to get like a butt attachment for it, so you can actually rest it against your shoulder, because the way the game was, like you were like looking for that to like feel it to actually be able to aim. But it was just really cool, really immersive. So I played that. Gran Turismo in VR is awesome. It makes me really want to get like the VR and like the Thrustmaster, the actual wheel. Like that was awesome. And then Farpoint in VR, they had like a new versus mode. That one is a little more difficult because you actually are moving around, so you can get motion sick with that. But it was still like the precision of the actual shooting was amazing. Like it was just fantastic. So I'm pretty much sold on VR, and I really want to pick one up soon.
I know that because of Black Friday, I mean, PSVR was dropped to $200 for the entire bundle. I think right now they still have kept, even now the bundle with the camera is $200. So
yeah, there's a couple different bundles right now. There's a GT bundle with a Gran Turismo, the camera and the headset for 200, and then there's I think a Skyrim bundle for 350 that has both the wands and Skyrim as well. So
it's cool.
Some good deals.
How about you, Matthew? What have you been playing? What has been keeping you busy? Anything you want to pass on, recommend to the unrated nation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most recent thing I've been playing is Warframe on Steam, actually. Got into that due to the Polygon article talking about it being one of the best games out there, like that's been ongoing and supported and upgraded and whatnot, and gave it a shot. And about 3 weeks later, I had 50 to 60 hours of playtime, and I was like, oh, wow, I guess I like this game. And so I definitely recommend Warframe on Steam. It's on Xbox and PlayStation as well. And I mean, I'm sure it's solid there too, but PC definitely gives you a lot of fluidity with movement and frame rates and things like that. So definitely loving it. Love the investment style of it. The social systems is really good. Also play some mobile games as well here and there. I'm a pretty big mobile game player too, but yeah, that's about it.
If you had to just address any advantage for PC over X, not as in like, because I mean there's no crossplay between PC and Xbox, right? On
No,
Warframe.
No.
Okay, but it's only there's no PvP mode in Warframe, correct?
There is. I actually tried it. Yeah, I haven't actually tried it because Warframe is a grindy game, and so there are people that have tens of thousands of hours in the game, and I don't want to go in and get absolutely destroyed in PvP. So I haven't actually tried PvP. I'm only done PvE content, solo and group content. And so I think that, yeah, the biggest differences are going to be graphic quality and frame rate, and then controls. The mouse and keyboard gives you a lot more fluidity with motion and ability to basically quickly move and respond to enemies and other things very, very fast. One of the big things in Warframe is like the bullet jumping and then like the running off of walls and running really quickly through the maps. And you watch a lot of videos and see people just basically fly through levels. And that's much harder to do with a controller because you're limited on the amount of inputs you can make quickly. Whereas on a keyboard, you can have 5, 6, 7 inputs pretty fast, and it's much harder to do that on a controller.
Gotcha.
And then, I mean, the frame rate also allows that to run much more smoothly. Whereas when something's locked, I actually don't know what Warframe's frame rate is on console, but I mean, I get much higher frame rates on PC than you can get on a console. So
okay, fair enough.
The church of unlimited frames.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing, I mean, just because you're probably the only Warframe player we'll have here for a while, unless Devin decides to jump on. And I mean, I installed it. I just haven't had time to really dive into it. If you had to, and I guess the point is not to crush Destiny or anything, but like obviously Warframe has been named as, hey, like this is a game that has found a way to do progression, and not only progression but microtransactions well. What, if from your experience, what has been your experience regarding both progression and microtransactions in Warframe? Obviously, just because, you know, we talked about Battlefront 2 here. We talked about, you know, just how microtransactions can be better done and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Warframe in the microtransaction realm has a couple of things going for it. First, it's a free-to-play game. So as a Warframe player, if you say, I want to spend no money, you can experience all the content and all of the non-cosmetic items in the game absolutely free. The only things that are truly behind a paywall are cosmetic items like skins and things like that. Like you see in a lot of other, you know, even AAA games, you have to pay for a cosmetic item. You can't earn it in the game. But you can experience all of the content. The other interesting thing is there's a player-driven economy that's come up around the game. There's a lot of websites where you can trade gear and things like that.
So there is interplayer trading. Gotcha.
And it's supported. It's not directly supported, but they publish an API and whatnot. So sites can track what items players have to facilitate the trading. And you actually trade for the premium currency, the platinum in the game, which is what you spend money to buy. And so even if you want to be entirely free to play, you can still get items that other players want, sell them to players, and then use that platinum to buy premium items. And so it basically adds a level of free to play ability, I guess, that players have the ability to get everything, even cosmetics, free to play if they put enough time in. Now, it takes a long time to get those items, you know, if you're playing entirely free to play, but you can still get all of that stuff. And then for the actual microtransactions, there's basically 3 types of transactions in the game. There's cosmetic stuff, which I've addressed, like skins and helmets and stuff. That's purely cosmetic, no stats. there are inventory and other account slots. So for instance, your inventory is limited. If you want to increase it, you have to spend platinum. It's enough to probably play 50 hours or so of the game before you run into an issue. But after about 50 hours, you have to make hard decisions of, do I want to sell a bunch of gear that I may or may not need later in the future? Or do I want to spend money or sell gear and buy platinum? And so it basically is saying, like, at some point, if I'm going to be totally dedicated, I have to figure out how I want to get enough inventory. And then the third thing, which is an interesting model, is that you can actually buy any item in game for platinum, just like outright. And you say, oh, well, that's pay to win. Well, kind of, but the whole point of the game is to grind to get the items. And so basically it allows players who don't have time to buy those items, but it's very easy to grind to get those same items. So for instance, if I want a new pistol, I could spend 2.5 hours grinding maps and get the items for that pistol and just build it. Or I could say spend $2 and buy the pistol. The pistols are identical in both ways. And it's very transparent about, what the item costs to craft, what the item costs to buy on the market, what the item costs to buy, like with platinum, the currency. And so basically it provides this kind of unique model where it offers players these microtransactions if they don't want to grind, but most of the community doesn't actually buy stuff that way. They actually do grind the items. The actual core of the microtransactions are for both the cosmetics and for the unlocks for the account, like inventory and things like that.
Okay, so not only even though it does provide a light pay to win, it's still a free to play game. So you could argue, well, you're not paying anything at for the game itself, and at the same time, like you said, it seems like the path to acquiring those items that you could purchase directly is very clear and transparent.
Yeah.
So that's also good for the player, because like it's not like I am I'm just, rolling the die, for like God knows how many days or months trying to get this item. Seems like the path to get it, to acquire it, is very kind of, I just have to walk down that path and do it. It's not like, I may end up in a completely different place.
Yeah, there's no loot box. There's no like I'm opening a chest and I'm seeing what I'm get. Like you basically buy the blueprint and then just go to the maps and like kill those enemies or whatnot. Get the crafting materials and then you just build that item and you have it. Same thing if you buy the item from the store. You just look, I want that gun. Click on the gun and then you get it if you pay the platinum. And so there's none of this like randomness in the microtransactions that is so abhorred by a lot of gamers and a lot of people that really adds that sense of gambling. Like you're not actually like risking anything or not sure what you're going to get. You always 100% know what I'm getting from this.
I just don't know why I can't get my freaking pink Darth Vader. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know.
Because it's not canon.
I mean, obviously, when I want, I don't know. They got it dead on. Obviously, when I asked for customization, what I obviously meant was I wanted a pink Darth Vader, right? And not clone trooper armor padding. No, none of that. The obvious conclusion to my demand for customization is pink Darth Vader. Like that is, man, they're geniuses at EA. Man, they just they're plugged into our brains. That's obviously what I wanted. And if people don't catch the sarcasm right now, then
they could have done so much with that customization. Like for Vader, you could have like an Anakin skin. You could have done.
Oh my god! Yeah,
Rogue, you could have the Rogue One Vader. You could have done
dying bird. Shattered. Burnt Vader. You could have
so many options. Like even with like Luke, you could have different versions of Luke.
Yeah, chibi Anakin. Like Episode 1 Anakin running around slashing people and saying, "Mom, I don't want to go. I'm gonna miss you." Or Anakin saying, "Oh, if you're not with me, you're against me." Yeah, they could have, no, but it's pink Darth Vader. That's obviously what the game. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, the sad thing is there's so many customization options in the actual movies and canon too, right? Like even different troopers' armors and stuff like that. That's just like it's not like they have to go outside of what's the core canon material in order to come up with new customization options.
Yeah.
And to me is I'm sorry, this is not even a topic for tonight, but it's the idea that like the canon answer is such a bad answer, even if that was a thing that they cared about, because Darth Vader didn't fight in these battles in Naboo. It's like I don't know. It's like,
yeah, you're gonna complain about canon, yet you have all of these heroes in places that they would have never ever been. That like time periods that they didn't exist. It's so
pretty
dumb.
Sure that I saw Luke fight in Oh my God, Moss Planet, the one where she has her cantina in Force Awakens.
Oh,
And I'm
God.
like, and it's it's like, I mean, obviously that is not what we're like. Obviously that canon is not a reason not to do something in a multiplayer game. Like, man, it was such a cop out. And it was also like obviously minimize, just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was a mess. Let's leave it at that.
All right, so let's go on to our main topic. Well, we have two main ones. One thing that has developed this week has been this week, excuse me, has been this concept of through two different stories, the idea of video games as art. And some of you, if you're listening or you're watching, this is something that, oh man, like I've done this before, but I think it's something that is good to talk about because even if you're of the opinion that video games are art, I think at least my take on it is, yes, it is art, but it's also a simulator, right? And that is something that we have to consider. When at the end of the day, when I'm watching a film, when I'm watching a movie, I am absorbing the content that I'm watching, but technically I'm not partaking in the actions. I would argue if you're watching a painting or a TV show or a film, and then you could argue, well, acting is also art, but I guess I'm mostly want to refer to like media that you absorb, right? I'm not gonna push it to like, actually performing and acting, even though we can definitely talk about that. So basically the trailer for Detroit Become Human or Becoming Human, I forgot what are the exact Become Human portrays basically an android. For those who haven't watched it, portrays an android performing all these different tasks, right? I mean, basically androids are, servants that have no free, well, according to the base of the game, they shouldn't have free choice or free will, but yet the trailer portrays an android having the capacity to prevent a girl getting physically abused or physically battered by her father. I mean, that is not shown in the trailer, but it's very obvious that's what happens in the trailer behind the scenes. And I think we're led to believe that the girl, dies, right? Yeah. I mean, she's dead at some point, and this idea that as the android, you could have prevented this. So basically the trailer got a lot of heat in Australia. If you don't know, Australia has some of the strictest gaming laws in the world. Well, maybe I don't know about the world, but from a Western standpoint, between the US, UK, Europe, and Australia, Australia is the strictest one. They have no shame. They'll put the highest rating they can get on anything if they feel it comes close to crossing the line. And I guess along with that story, the developer for what's his current game? Actually, I know he did Brothers, but what's the current game that he was Joseph Fares? A Way Out. Yeah, he called out the Oscars. He said fuck the Oscars, and we can say that here because it's unrated. This is not Nintendo Shack. We burned down the filter with a Nintendo Shack too. Suck it to the platformers. No, I'm just kidding. Some of them are. Basically, he went on a rant talking about how it is about time that video games no longer see themselves as a second-rate form of art, but that they're an equivalent form of art to filmmaking, to music, and we shouldn't say, oh well, the Game Awards are like the Oscars. Like no, the Game Awards are the Game Awards, the Oscars are the Oscars. And basically him going, and then he didn't. I mean, I wouldn't say you needed to apologize for that. I think he was just sharing his opinion in a very public manner. But I mean, so let's feel free to pick it up wherever you want, anywhere in the spectrum of that story. Devin, what are your initial thoughts on this, man?
So the whole thing with me, like I get that they have a problem with us it being interactive. So either you're preventing this abuse or you let it happen, and it's no longer something that you're just a spectator of. You're actually taking part in this thing. And I think that is utterly ridiculous for you to have any problem with that. It's a video game, Everything is put in the proper context. It's not like they're saying, let's just go around. It's not like Manhunt. You know, Manhunt was a game that came out that was pretty vicious. Like you were literally going around murdering people for sport.
Was that the bird's eye view one? Like you were it's kind of was like a gray color scheme.
Yeah, you were basically like seeing yourself on.
I mean, you were like a mass active shooter, basically. That's what the whole game was, basically, right?
Yeah, you were basically, you had got out of prison and you were basically creating a snuff video for somebody. He wanted you to go around and kill all these people to obtain your freedom. So like something like that, I can understand having more of an issue with, because you're playing a game where you're killing for sport in a way. But something like this, like I think this speaks to just a lot of what's going on, like domestic abuse. Like if you can prevent that, you know, wouldn't you want to? Wouldn't you want to have that dialogue and be able to talk about the fact that that's going on, regardless of whether it's in book form or whether it's in a movie form? Like I feel like there should be nothing wrong with having that in an interactive medium, because I think it starts the discussion. Like I think this
what
is
happens.
Something...
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think that there's nothing wrong with this, and I cannot believe the fact that people have such an issue with it. And again, it's because they think games are supposed to be games, and we're to the point where games are crossing that line where it's so much more. It's not just, you know, a platformer where you're trying to be, you know, Mario and save the princess. These are telling stories. For me, gaming is something that I enjoy more than movies, because it's an interactive movie. You know, it's something that you can enjoy, that you can absorb the content, you can take it away the same way you would a movie, but you know what, you actually took some part in it. So it becomes a lot more personal. I prefer that than to sitting idle and just watching a screen. I like the interactivity of it.
I agree with you. Sometimes between watching the latest episode of something or playing the next chapter of a game, sometimes I'm like, wow, I'd rather play the game because it's more interactive and it's more fun. What happened? So when I read this story, it is not, and it's not the same case that has been presented, but my mind went back to Call of Duty Modern Combat 2, Modern Warfare 2.
Oh yeah,
when you have that mission in the Russian airport.
The Russian, yeah.
You're playing spoiler alert if you haven't played Modern Warfare 2. 15 years later. That's not true, but I don't know how long ago that was. You're playing this CIA operative inserted into a Russian terrorist cell, and the entire mission is you having to prove yourself to the cell, and literally they give you a machine gun and you gun down people at the airport. For me, when I look at the Become Human trailer, for me, it is obvious that is not a glorification of violence and abuse.
Exactly.
It is not that. But the issue is that, for me personally, the Modern Warfare 2 case was also not a damnation of terrorist activity. And if anything, I mean, maybe 10 years too late, I kind of have issues where I'm trying to figure out where my mind is here, where a very evil and heinous act maybe isn't glorified, but you're also not drawing a line that this is bad. This is really bad. I mean, according to the average standard for, you know, your everyday Joe and Jane, this is not, you should not commit mass murder, right? Like, what do you guys think about that? Matthew, feel free to jump in, man.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think that movies have that aspect as well. I mean, it'd be hard for me to come up one off the top of my head, but I mean, I know in the past there have been movies that portray very gray and questionable moral decisions in a somewhat positive light. I mean, there are movies that already have, you know, a lot of heavy violence, a lot of, you know, heavy things going on in the movie, and we still see those as art. We don't look down upon those or question the movie like saying, oh, is that too much? Is that across the line? Like, I think that's not kind of the standard question that's asked of a movie until it goes like so far beyond what we consider like morally acceptable. I mean, to the interactivity point, I guess a question, and the kind of a hypothetical question would be, is something like a choose your own adventure novel considered interactive enough to reach that bare minimum? because effectively a narrative video game has many of the same moral equivalent choices, like a choose your own adventure novel. The idea being you're presented with usually 2 or 3 options of like, do I want to save this person, or do I want to, rob them, or do I want to kill their family or whatever? I don't know. I mean, that's a very arbitrary example, but it's kind of similar to this mentality of I'm choosing which path I want to go. And yes, I'm making that choice, but I have that same choice in like a choose your own adventure novel. And so I agree that choice doesn't exist in movies, but I think that doesn't make it more or less an art because of that. It's at the end of the day, we're presented with a moral decision or a moral choice. In a movie, the choice is made for us and we see the outcome. In a video game, we have a couple of different choices. We pick the one we want and then we see the outcome of it. But it's still that concept of narratively we're presented with a moral choice. And I think that the act of making that choice reveals a lot about our own sense of morality and justice and mercy, or whatever the case is, in ourselves in making that choice. I mean, if we're actually playing the game to, experience the characters, experience the world. And I can think of even Elder Scrolls Online, which I played for a while. There's a lot of quests in there where you have to make some really hard moral choices, where neither side is great and neither side is a good outcome, but you're kind of presented with, what do I do? What's the best option here? And it's tough. If you're really like trying to connect to the characters, it's tough knowing what the right moral outcome is. And I think that in itself reveals a lot about, my personal sense of morality. And then is a sense of art because of that, because it's showing me something about myself that I can only find in those experiences.
I'm going to push back one last time on the issue of, yes, like a Telltale game, or maybe even a choose your own adventure novel, you're making very excuse me, I would sorry, you're making general choices, maybe some specific choices, but you're only making the choice. You're not executing the action. Whereas in some games, you're actually going through every step of executing the action, right? So I would argue that, in maybe a Telltale game, you're saying, or any type of episodic narrative game, you're saying, tell her, press A to tell her that we're not going to rescue her sister. You press A, right? But maybe in other games, you're actually, you're pressing the trigger, you're going through the motions of committing a heinous act. Is there a point where video games can go too far? And in straight, I don't know. I guess that's my pushback, because there's different levels of simulation, right? One is pick a general choice and watch the outcome take place. On the other extreme is you're actually going through step 1 through 20 in committing something that, yeah, it's a simulator, but from our society's perspective, it's a horrible act.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I'll answer that if I can offer another hypothetical situation. If you think about Star Trek, I actually think there's a good example here.
Great transition point, Matthew.
Exactly. I know. I actually think that. Yeah. In the holodeck in Star Trek, oftentimes, and we see in the major canonical shows, the characters on the holodecks will play both the good guys and the bad guys in the stories. Okay. And they'll actually, as the bad guys, try to carry out these like awful actions or whatever. And I mean, it's often portrayed in a kind of trivial light because this usually not centered around these holodecks and what's going on in them. But it's very clear that the characters in this Star Trekian world view the holodecks as an art form and also their main form of entertainment when they're on the starships. Like a lot of the cultural, artistic pieces in many different alien species are preserved through the holodeck. And the people go in there and play them out, and often play out villains as they're playing out these like either art narratives or, cultural representations or purely entertainment pieces. And in the show, we don't see anybody critical of them playing the villains. And I argue that no one says about Star Trek, oh my gosh, that guy played a villain in the holodeck. That's probably polluting him or a really bad thing for him to do that. And so I find it interesting that societally we accept that version of it, but we're very reticent to accept the video game, which is a much less interactive, much less decision-based, or much less, I don't know, I guess like fully acted out version of the actions on display.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's really interesting. And the fact that you said that like the decisions you make kind of let you know a little bit more about yourself. It's like, for example, the no Russian mission in Modern Warfare 2. I couldn't pull the trigger. I wouldn't kill any of them. I was like, this just doesn't feel right,
bro. I'm just kidding.
Like, I'm not doing that. And then they killed him anyway at the end of it. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And then like a game like Watch Dogs 2, like I felt like Marcus as a character wouldn't have killed anybody. So I didn't kill anybody that entire game. Like I played the entire game using the hacks and using a stun gun because I felt like Marcus isn't a mass murderer. Why would he shoot anybody? It didn't feel right for the character as, you know, that art form. You know, it just didn't feel right.
How do you play Mass Effect? Have you played Mass Effect? Do they
I
have
have
that
played Mass Effect. I have played. Yes,
you guys
we do.
have that?
Yes, we have them all.
Okay.
We have them all. But I only played a small bit of Mass Effect 2. Like that's one of those games where I would sit there and play it, and then I would stop playing it, and then come back and be like, "What the hell am I doing?" And then I was like, "I can't pick this back up." So I haven't played a whole lot of Mass Effect.
Okay,
so
I know because Mass Effect is famous for its Paragon versus Renegade moral system. I always play Renegade, man. I gotta tap into the dark side, man.
Yeah, I bounce back and forth. You know? Like I'm kind of like chaotic neutral.
Yeah. So my problem with Renegade mode in Mass Effect is that apparently, like, and this will always bother me. If you were pro-human, it was Renegade. It was like at the spoiler alert, Mass Effect.
That doesn't surprise me though.
10 years later, I mean, I'm done with these spoiler alerts. If you haven't played these games, it's not. At the end of Mass Effect, we have to choose between saving the multi-alien council and saving the human fleet. And I'm like, I'm saving the human fleet. Like I'm not. I mean, the entire game, the council is like a pain in the ass. They're preventing you from getting your missions done. They're bureaucratic steps along the way. I'm like, nah, man. The human fleet just saved my ass. You know, from like the Saren. No, I'm saving the human fleet. First of all, they're my homeboys. Second of all, they're actually helping me out versus the council sitting in their chambers. I just straight up said, nah, man, save the human fleet, forget the council. And that was like the renegade choice. I'm like, whatever. Apparently, it's not okay to support your own fleets, your own race fleets.
It's like non-PC, so it becomes renegade because you're going against the PC choice, I guess.
Apparently so, man. Even though it's your own human fleet that you're saving. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So how I guess maybe to focus a little bit more on Joseph Fair's comments. Any final takes on this on the people call it an outburst. I thought it was planned. I think outbursts happen when you like just like it comes out of nowhere, and I feel like he had it seems to me he had an intention to make a point.
Yeah, I feel like he went in there like he knew he was gonna say that, but
right.
You know, it just goes to show like his passion for what he's doing. You know. And the fact that, you know, we don't get taken as like they don't take games seriously yet, and the fact that it has done more money like than a lot of movies and music, like it's one of the #1 like gross selling like across all levels, but it doesn't get the recognition that movies and other media do. It's just a game. Yeah. So I totally understand where he's coming from, and he's passionate about what he's doing. He's like, y'all got to recognize what we're doing is art. It's telling a story. It has all kind of moral ambiguity. I can't even say the word. It's got a whole lot of moral choices in there. You've got all kind of different types of stories. You look at games like Dreams that are just gorgeous. Like there's so many different levels of art in games that aren't recognized. So I can understand why he's upset about that and wanted to kind of push the envelope a little bit and show his passion for it. So I think it's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, not really related to the art discussion, but I saw one person, and I agree with this, say that in that 5 minutes, he did more to repair EA's brand than anybody has done in months. And I actually think that's true. I think that
wait to repair EA brands, like I guess you're about to explain that. Go ahead.
Yeah, to repair EA's brand. The idea being that what he said about EA and the way he said it was extremely positive in a way that wouldn't come across as cheap, given everything that's going on in the media right now. Like if you get somebody from EA come up and say EA is a great company, like that's going to seem really cheap and like, you know, very much like they were just paid to say that. And the way he said what he said about EA, that everybody makes a mistake, but they've been good to me. Like you honestly believe that he's telling the truth as he believes it. You believe him about the company and what he's saying, that's been his experience. And so in that sense, that repaired the brand more than really anything else they could have done at that time. So I thought that was very interesting. But I mean, going back to the art thing, I do definitely agree, like with what you were saying, that it is, that's his goal, is to have that recognition. And I mean, taking a step back historically, it took movies about 30 years, although at that point it was silent films, but it took them about 30 years from when they were kind of accepted in the mainstream to when they were considered an art form. And so I think we're kind of seeing that same progression with video games.
And my data or my memory may fail me, but I believe it was Halo 3, the first video game release that within a given amount of time generated more money than a movie release. I think within a statistical frame, X number of days, Halo 3's release actually made more money than the comparable, AAA, or not AAA, but like the blockbuster release that year. And basically, so a lot of people say that was the birth of the AAA gaming, era. The idea that you could have these blockbuster releases that in a matter of in a weekend they could generate way more money than the comparable release that same weekend for a movie or something along those lines. It's interesting. Speaking of films, nothing could save. The way I see it, Star Trek is a dying breed. Everything is awful. And nothing, I would love someone like Quentin Tarantino to walk in there, stomp his boots on the ground and say, give me that R rating, baby. Give it to me. I will save this. I'll make this work. Devin, I know you're all about this.
It's weird. Tarantino pushes the envelope so hard. I don't even know what he would do with Star Trek. Like, it's so hard to see it. And I think about movies like Pulp Fiction. I think about Django Unchained and his gratuitous use of the N-word.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what are you going to do with Star Trek? How are you going to try to push the envelope? Are you just trying to take it back to its roots of being more about telling a story than being an action piece? I just don't know where he would take it. So I'm very, very interested to see what his take on Star Trek would be. Like, is it going to be off the rails, or is it going to be something where he's going to bring it back home?
I guess my initial thought when I saw that he may, once again, this is in the very early stages. Right. He may not even get to direct the film. He may get he may have a very important role in writing the script and stuff, but he may not even get picked as the final director's choice. The first thing I thought was, something Star Trek heading more in the direction of a Battlestar Galactica, which was very, very visually, graphically mature. I would argue. I wouldn't say thematically different, or but very visually mature. Not Game of Thrones level, but just when it comes to violence, when it comes to depiction of death and just depiction of just in general, it was a very mature show. Definitely more mature in what you're visually watching versus like a show like Star Trek Discovery right now, currently on CBS. I don't know, man. I part of me believes that what makes Star Trek great is just the discussion of principles and values and reflecting on our own world through this utopian future where humanity is unified. I don't know if that conversation is improved through some, I don't know. Once again, I have no idea what he wants to do with the R rating, but right. I don't know what the goal is there.
Right. Does Star Trek need to be R rated? Like, it just, I don't know how it fits.
Yeah. Well, I actually agree with you a lot, Q, about that. I think that, and I'm not watching Star Trek Discovery, I can't comment on the show, but from what I've seen, it doesn't seem to follow the standard Star Trek kind of theme, motif, and narrative. I am watching The Orville, which I find is an excellent show, and I think it really has a lot of the Star Trek elements, and it does them right. And like what you're talking about and discussing, like really poignant and important moral issues in this kind of semi-utopian future, and using futurist technology, like how do we address these really critical moral issues? And so I do think that is what makes Star Trek. And I don't like the J.J. Abrams and other Star Treks that have come around then because of that. And so My worry would be that, Tarantino would do his thing, like you guys were talking about, and just go, as far into the whatever R rating, whatever he can. And it just wouldn't be Star Trek. It would just be he's using the brand to sell a film that he wants to make.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of the latest Tarantinos, I mean, last one was that one in the shack, the Nintendo shack. It's like a 6 or 7 people. They're stuck. There's a snowstorm happening.
Hateful Eight or something?
Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie was really interesting because you're trying to figure out who is the bad guy. It's like who did it,
Mm-hmm.
Then you watch it the first time and you're like, okay, cool. Figure that out. Not watching that again. But then what was the moral lesson to learn from that? Nothing. Humanity is awful. That's the moral lesson to learn from that. Humans are horrible beings put in a horrible situation. They will murder the shit out of each other and just walk away from it. It's like it was a very I would hate to be in that shack because everyone is killing each other. And instead of being like having your balls and being like, hey man, I'm gonna kill you right here. No, I'm gonna do all these awful things behind your back. It was just like, I don't know. It was just this very brutally dark representation of humanity, which I mean, don't get me wrong. It happens, right? Humans are capable of awful things, but I don't know. Like, once again, like maybe Django has some social commentary. Django that was worth looking into. I mean, it was definitely entertaining for what it was. Inglourious Bastard was entertaining for what it was. I just don't generally feel like Tarantino movies, outside of being graphically and I don't know, and A Moment's Zone is being very impactful. I don't think there's any like long-standing principles or lessons to pull from them.
Right.
I've been rewatching movies that I just watched Kingdom of Heaven, right? Where some people can roll their eyes. I was like, oh my God, that was an awful movie. It's like Orlando Bloom as this Crusader knight. But there's some really good lines in that movie about what does it mean to be, a righteous person? And what does it mean to live a righteous life? What does it mean to, like, if you're given a situation where you can save people versus, dying gloriously in battle, is there a benefit to, maybe like surrendering for the sake of, people who are going to be massacred? And I think, it's not a masterpiece film, but there's some lessons there that stand the test of time. And I just don't know if Tarantino films do that, and when I look at Star Trek, I'm like, I feel like Star Trek for the most part tries to do that.
Right. And it feels like he's just going for shock value, and it's like, how do you bring that? How do the two merge to be something that makes sense for the Star Trek universe?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think about, like you said, like the Hateful Eight. Like, to me, that felt like the Western version of his first movie, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah. No. That's yeah. Right.
And I'm just like, what are you going to do with Star Trek that makes any sense? Like, are you going to just step out of your normal box and be able to create a great Star Trek movie? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to just stay in your lane and do what you do and just create something that's more shock value than anything else? And I just feel like that would do Star Trek such a disservice.
Right. That's fair.
In some ways, it's kind of just a progression of where J.J. Abrams has gone, right? I mean, I feel like we've already moved away from kind of this like core what makes Star Trek Star Trek. And that was the pushback with Discovery. I mean, you saw a lot of very hardcore Star Trek fans very upset about Discovery and some of the changes they saw there. And like I said, I haven't watched it, so I can't comment on it currently. But I know before it was released, there was a lot of negative press about that. And so, I mean, the canon of Star Trek is currently so fractured and so broken that, I mean, this doesn't surprise me that it's being proposed, but I do agree that I think it just totally destroys what the brand of Star Trek is.
Any final thoughts on this? I mean, one thing I'll say, I am watching Star Trek Discovery, and even though, yes, it is a break from the MO of Star Trek, if Star Trek is A times C equals, G, then yeah, it's not that. But it's actually more like, instead of multiplying to get G, it's like dividing to get G. It's like for me personally, the end result of what I'm getting is very Star Trek like, and has a very strong Star Trek flavor. But however, the way that the show puts together characters and story sequences is not the typical Star Trek way of doing it. One thing that I always point to is in most Star Treks, the captain is for the most part an instrument of good. I mean, outside of maybe a couple of shows, like SG9 maybe has, or was it the one where they're in the station?
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine.
That's my favorite.
There's a few episodes where maybe the captain is, morally vague, but I don't think he's ever outright, straight up making pretty much an evil choice. Captain Lorca in Discovery, you can straight up question where his moral compass lies. So it's up to the crew around him to wall off his ability to carry out evil for the sake of winning the war against the Klingons. So it's almost like Lorca is willing to go in any direction he has to go to win the war. He sees this war in front of him. He's like, if we don't win this war, there's no tomorrow. There's no good and evil tomorrow if we lose the battle today. So he's willing to do anything, and it's up to the crew around him to wall off options that are at his disposal by either convincing him not to do it or by providing an alternative. Hey, Captain, we can actually do this. We don't have to go to that extreme. And for me, it's very much bringing up Star Trek level discussions about good and evil and society and human nature in a way that maybe Star Trek hasn't done it before, by pushing the limits of what a Federation commander would typically be. I don't know, be what he consider his options to be. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on Discovery. If you haven't watched it, give it a shot. Any final thoughts? We're getting near the end of the episode tonight. Any final thoughts on what we talked about?
No, I think I left it all out there.
All right.
Yeah, no. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Anything that y'all want to plug in, whether it's like a video or a channel, or this is really open to Matthew, you can plug in whatever you want, whatever you think people should check out or worth watching or tuning into.
I don't know. The only thing I would say is if you're looking for a game, definitely give Warframe a try.
Okay.
But I don't have anything else specifically to plug.
Okay. Excellent. How about you, Devin? Any plugs? Anything you want to plug in?
I may jump into Warframe tonight, actually. It's been sitting on my hard drive. I actually started it when it first launched, and it was hard to understand what the heck to even do when it first launched, like when it first dropped with PS4. But just watching it progress, I think I may want to be a space ninja, so I may jump into that. But as far as anything to plug, no, just the OT. We had an off week because I was at PSX, so we will be back to recording this Saturday. Check out all the good stuff on PSVG. But other than that, I'm not working on anything else. I'm about ready to take this good Christmas break.
Sounds good, man. And Devin has committed to recording right in the middle of Christmas Day.
I heard that. I'm a witness.
We're gonna do a live on the air gift unwraps.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, that sounds really boring. Actually,
you log in the background.
No, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I don't have anything to plug in. Just check out PSVG. We have a lot of shows. I think we're basically publishing a new podcast episode every day at this point.
Just about, yeah.
Just about. We have 6 or 7 shows. I think maybe 5, and we're basically pumping out new content every day. Check out our stream channel on YouTube or on Twitch, and we have like an ungodly amount of Twitter handles, so just follow all of them.
Yeah.
There's a Twitter handle for having every podcast. I don't know if that's right, but it sounds right.
Just about, yeah.
Thank you for tuning in, Matthew. Thank you for joining us tonight. It was awesome to have you. Definitely good to have more people on the show and have different opinions and different outlooks on things. Please follow us on Twitter at Unrated Podcast, and feel free to shout out any email, question, discussion topics, or any free money you want to give to us. Just give it to Devin. Actually, I don't want to pay taxes and stuff, so just give it to Devin. I don't want it. I don't want to. Yeah, that's too much work. Just send it to Devin. He can take care of it. I don't want your money. We are the internet's strongest and fiercest podcast. We are Unrated. Thank you for listening, and thank you for tuning in.